Hey guys, Prowl 1701 here, and today we're going to talk about Season 7 of Classic Doctor Who, the first season of Doctor Who in color, and of course the first season of Jon Pertwee as the Third Doctor. We enter the golden age of Doctor Who. We entered the best decade of Doctor Who to ever exist, with two of the best doctors the show has ever had, and some of the greatest writers the show has ever had. I love Season 7. This is one of the GOAT seasons. One of the greatest seasons the show has ever done. I do think it's also arguably Pertwee's best season. I think the other contender for that would be Season 10. We'll get to that when we talk about Season 10. Season 7 only has 4 stories, but they're all good stories. But it's interesting how much of what we now call a soft reboot of the show Season 7 is, because Season 7 is drastically different from Season 6. Really, the only thing comparable would be, of course, the invasion, which is basically a pre-Pertwee story, and of course the basis of what they would base, especially the first couple seasons of the Pertwee era on, with the Doctor exiled on Earth by the Time Lords at the end of the War Games, spending the majority, especially of these first 2 seasons, on Earth, and all of Season 7 on Earth in exile, forced to regenerate into the Third Doctor. The Third Doctor himself is very different from the Second Doctor. A little more in line with the First Doctor. He's more serious, he's more authoritative, he hates authority. He likes being the head authority. That's why he doesn't like other authority. And Jon Pertwee plays it so well. This is a Doctor who very much commands the room. He knows he's the smartest one in the room and doesn't mind letting everyone else know it. Unlike the Second Doctor, who loved tricking people into thinking that he was incompetent, much like Columbo, who, as he mentioned in The Dominators, you don't worry as much about an unintelligent enemy. So while the Second Doctor was very good at fooling people into thinking he was much less intelligent than he really was, the Third Doctor wanted people to know he's the smartest one in the room, and that everyone needed to listen to him because he was the smartest one in the room. Which, to be fair, most of the time he was. So we have some great stories here. We have 25 episodes this season, 1 4-parter and 3 7-parters. 5 of those episodes exist in their original format, with the other 20 episodes coming from other recovered sources. Of course, all 4 episodes of Spearhead from Space, their 16mm film is still retained in the archives, because it does hold the distinction of being the only classic Doctor Who story shot entirely on film due to a strike at the time, but that works in our favor, as it is also the only classic Doctor Who film that can be fully made in true HD, and it looks glorious. I own the Blu-ray of it. It's actually right here. And it looks fantastic. One of my subscribers actually sent that to me. Matter of fact, 2 of you sent that to me. I have a second copy that I'm trying to give to a friend of mine if I can ever catch up with it. And I appreciate both of you. It really means a lot. It just pops on Blu-ray, by the way. It looks gorgeous. It's like watching a James Bond movie from the 60s. It looks so good. I wish more of Classic Who popped the way this does. It looks so good. And then Spearhead is such a good story as well. I like this very much influenced by Quatermass and the Pit era that we're in here with alien invasions and stuff. Or very influenced by Quatermass, I should say. Although the only Quatermass I've seen is Quatermass and the Pit, but I've read about Quatermass. I love Liz Shaw a lot. This is my favorite story with her in it. I just love the snark she has in her. It's not just a police box. It's a spaceship with that little grin she has. Carolyn John, probably one of the most attractive women I've ever seen, but just a fantastic actress, and I love the way she plays the role. I really like the Brigadier in this one. He's much more serious. Every now and then I felt like the Brigadier was played a little over the top. I don't think that's Nicholas Courtney's fault. I think that's the way he was directed. Or the way the script wrote him, much like in the 3 Doctors, where he's a little too thick-headed as to what's going on around him. I love the 3 Doctors, but I don't like the way he's written in it. I much prefer how he's written here. He's written very well and performed very well here. Nicholas Courtney's always great. I like some of the antagonists in it. The guy who plays kind of the head Waxworks, there's just something about the way they do the makeup on him. He looks so unnatural. I don't know what it is, but he looks so unnatural and not quite human. And I swear he never blinks. I don't know if that's true or if it's just my memory tricking me, but I swear he never blinks, which if that's true is a great touch and I love it. The guy playing the General, both versions of the General, is good. The guy who's under their control with the little thing behind his ear, he's doing good. The guy who gets killed by them in the tent, that poor guy, Ransom or whatever his name is, he's doing a good job. I really like Spearhead from Space. And I love the fact that it is only 4 parts. I like the fact that the first story to get you introduced to this Doctor is only 4 parts. And the fact that while the third Doctor is sidelined briefly, it's really only the first episode. Pretty much after the first episode, he gets up and moving pretty quickly, which I like. I like when he gets up and moving. I love the scene when he's talking about the past. I need a past? Well, I don't have one. Go tell the Brigadier I'm here to see. I love that whole bit. I love the third Doctor right from the get-go there. And that bit about, how do I know you're telling the truth? You don't. You don't. Only I know that. I love the way John Pertwee does that. Just does that dialogue there. And the fact how he tries to leave. How he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm not going to leave. And then he tries to leave. I love that. I just love that. There's so many good things going on in this story that I enjoy a lot. Especially the woman who's shooting at the creature, the Autons, and it's not working. Yeah. So much good stuff going on in this. Now, the other 3 stories are all 7-parters. And aside from episode 1 from Ambassadors of Death, they're all recovered from other sources. Now, episode 1 of Ambassadors of Death is actually the original video master. Matter of fact, it is the earliest surviving original videotape master of Doctor Who, I believe, because none of the 60s are the original video masters. They're all recorded. They're either 35 millimeter recordings or 16 millimeter telerecordings. The earliest surviving video master is episode 1 of the Ambassadors of Death, which looks good. The others are recovered from other sources, and as if you're watching this video and you're familiar with season 7, you know it looks rough. This Doctor Who and the Silurians is a good 7-parter. Maybe an episode too long. I don't think it's too long. Maybe an episode too long. It does kind of drag a bit in places. I think the Silurian design is really good for the time. It hasn't aged the best. It's way better than how they did the redesign in the modern series. But it looks really good. I love the themes of the story. How neither side is necessarily the good guy or the bad guy between the humans and the Silurians. You understand why the Silurians feel the way they do. Because this was indeed their planet. They can't believe that the monkeys evolved and control it now. They want their planet back. They have just as much right to it as we do. Whereas the humans are just scared and they see a threat and they're treating it like an alien invasion even though it's not one. So it's like both sides are kind of in the wrong here. Neither one is necessarily the bad guy, or you could argue both of them are the bad guy, because both of them handle the situation very badly and it leads to tragedy. And then, of course, we have the plague being released, and, of course, what I would argue is political commentary on the dangers of, 1, not negotiating and hearing each other out, but 2, the dangers of biological warfare, which we see here, which, especially rewatching this story post the COVID era, post-pandemic, this story kind of hits different, especially at the end when you see all the people dropping in the streets and dying from this plague. And it's nice to see Jeff back. I always like when Jeff shows up in an episode. He's in this one, The Mutants, and Voyage of the Damned. I like him as an actor. That really hits different, seeing the plague victims and everybody on the ground. There's a lot of really good, just thematic things going on in this episode that I really like. The performances, again, are good. The ending is phenomenal. I love the ending of this story at the end when the Doctor sees that explosion and that look on his face. And the things he said about that's murder. The Brigadier, he blew them up. Then you see the second explosion and he turns around again, and he drives off because there's nothing he can do. And it's such a good performance for John. The ending of this story is the ending that Warriors of the Deep tries to be and fails utterly to be. It's also the ending that Orphan 55 tries to be and utterly fails to be, because Jodie Whittaker is a good actress, but she is nowhere near as good of an actress playing the Doctor as Jon Pertwee is. Jon Pertwee is just 1,000 times better in the role than she is. She's a great actress in other stuff I've seen her in. Loved her in Broadchurch and Black Mirror. But as the Doctor, she just does not sell that moment at all. And Orphan 55 falls apart because of its ending. I mean, it's not a good story even up to that point, but it really falls apart with that crappy ending. Whereas that ending works with the Silurians for different reasons. One, Carolyn John is doing a good job as well. She doesn't have a lot of lines there, but the way she's delivering them and the look on her face is helping sell it opposite John. And a lot of it is the dialogue is cracking good. The directing, the way that scene is shot is really good. And then Jon Pertwee is just a fantastic actor as the Doctor. He truly is. It sells that scene and makes that story work. It ends with a and I love it. It's probably the reason why I rank it slightly higher than the Sea Devils, even though I think overall the Sea Devils is probably better written. But that ending for Silurians just hits harder, and I love that. Now, the episode looks rough. Again, it's from recovered sources. This is definitely something that needs to be worked on restoration-wise before we get the Season 7 box set in the collection range. All 7 episodes of the Silurians need a lot of restoration work because the colors are all over the place with it in places. Look at some of the walls in the background, like when, is it Peter Miles? Is that his name? The same guy who plays Niter in Genesis. I love when he shows up in Doctor Who too, by the way. Peter, and I think his name is Peter Miles, right? He's fantastic every time he shows up. Like in the scenes when he's kind of flipping out, losing his mind, look at the background walls. The colors look really weird. Needs a lot of restoration work. Now, the Ambassadors of Death has really moved up in my estimation since my last rewatch. One of my subscribers did send it to me. I forget which one right off. It was probably either Lance, Colin, or Simon, or Flyattractor. They're the ones who are really good about sending stuff, and I appreciate each and every one of them. But, you know, I'd always said Ambassadors of Death was a good story, but it was a 4 or 5-parter that got stretched into 7 parts. You could do it in 4 parts, but it got stretched to 7 parts. I don't know if I quite think that now, because I learned the trick to really enjoying Ambassadors of Death is not to watch it all in one sitting. Don't try to cram the whole thing in. It really feels padded. But if you take the time and watch Ambassadors of Death over like a 3 or 4 day period with breaks, it works really well, which is how the serial was originally created to be watched. Anyway, classic Doctor Who was meant to be watched 1 episode a week, not, you know, a 7-parter all at once. Probably one of the reasons I have issues with the Daleks. I really need to watch the Daleks over the span of like 4 or 5 days, and I think I might appreciate it better. My goal is to do that sometime this year. But having watched Ambassadors of Death recently, I still love the story. I think the story is really good. I love the idea of the aliens are the good guys. It's just some of the humans that are the terrible people. And once again, the humans, especially one of the humans, the one that's the former military officer, it's not that he's a bad person. He just thinks he's doing the right thing. There's a couple of the other humans that are most definitely bad people, one in particular. I love seeing him get his at the end. I think the aliens are pretty well realized for the most part. Some of the effects don't hold up too well. We probably won't get any updated effects for Season 7 because so much of the budget's going to go to the restoration work, which it should, to be fair. I would rather the money go to the restoration work and not have updated effects than pull money from the restoration work for updated effects. But if, you know, if whoever was responsible came to me and said, which one would you like to give updated effects? It would be Ambassadors of Death. There is definitely some work there. The rockets in space. The Doctor docking in the alien ship, the Doctor talking to the people through what very obviously the aliens, which look like blinds, like window blinds. There's definitely some updated stuff you could do there and make that work a lot better. But I definitely think it doesn't really detract much from the story being a good story. Also, I wish the ending of the story was a little longer. It just kind of ends abruptly. While I think the story itself could still maybe be a little shorter, maybe an episode shorter, the ending feels a little too abrupt. I wish it had lasted just a little bit longer. Maybe another 2 or 3 minutes just for something. Also, episodes 2 through 6 need a lot of restoration work. Probably even more than Silurians. Famously, they have had a lot of problems restoring Ambassadors of Death. Like, you can go look up online where they talk about Ambassadors of Death and the problems they have had restoring it, because the one tape they have that has a color source from it was like a Betamax copy from a showing in the US, and there was banding issues, and they had a lot of problems recolorizing it. A lot of the episodes, I think one episode completely had to be recolored with the color recovery method that they're using now. So lots of restoration work on episodes 2 through 6. And then we come to Inferno. And you guys know I love Inferno. It is my favorite Pertwee story by hands down. It's also my third favorite Doctor Who story of all time. I love Inferno. It's one of the earliest Doctor Who stories I have memory of, and it's the second Doctor Who story I ever owned. The other earliest story I have memory of is The Ark in Space, which I love The Ark in Space. It was the first Doctor Who story I ever owned. I bought it on DVD back in the early to mid 2000s, and Inferno was the second one I bought. Those were the two I sought out originally, because I have such memories of those. The earliest Doctor Who stories I have memory of watching. Although I think I saw The Five Doctors probably a dozen times, it seems like, when I was young. They showed it a lot in the 80s around here. So I have very fond memories of The Five Doctors and several other classic Doctor Who stories as well. I just love everything about Inferno. It's 7 parts. It's balanced perfectly. Perfectly. Not good, not great, not immaculately. Perfect. And I mean perfect by the definition of the word perfect. I have no pacing issues with this story. I love how well it's balanced, especially since the idea of the alternate Earth was added later to extend the parts, because originally it wasn't in the script, and they were trying to figure out how do we extend this to 7 parts, and they came up with that wonderful idea, and it works. It's a great way of not only reusing sets, but also reusing your actors, having most of the actors in the story outside of the Doctor playing dual roles, which is a fantastic guy. We also have, is it Benjamin Cook? Is that his name? The guy playing Sir Keith, who's in several Doctor Who's. He's even in The Unicorn and the Wasp in the modern series. Of course, he's also in Talons. He's great as Sir Keith in this. As a matter of fact, it's probably my favorite role of his in Doctor Who. He's really, really good. I love the guy playing Stallman. That guy needs a BAFTA. I love him as Stallman. Both versions of Stallman. He just strikes me as the typical bureaucrat. I'm right. Everybody needs to shut up and get out of my way. The guy playing him is just perfect casting for that. The guy playing Greg, who several people have told me I look like. I don't see it, but that's what I've been told. Also makes me think I need to diet more. But the actor is doing a great job as both versions of Sutton. I love watching Carolyn John, especially as the alternate Liz, who Carolyn herself has said she loved playing the alternate Liz. She is just, because you can see little hints of our Liz in her, but this is a Liz who's grown up in a much more Germans won World War II style rule, or 1984 style rule. And watching Nicholas Courtney get to kind of ham it up a bit as the Brigadier, he hams it up a little. But he's also having fun with it, and I love how he plays the brigade leader as this kind of pompous guy who acts tough, and I'm a soldier, you'll respect me, I earned my command. But you kind of find out at the end of the story he's really just kind of a big coward, a paranoid scaredy cat. I love the way Nicholas Courtney does that. That's really, really well done. And John Pertwee puts in one of his best performances as the Doctor. I love him here. I love how he can't take the other people back to his universe when they're like, we're going with you, and he's like, no, I can't do that. I always wanted an explanation for that. Is it because he thinks it's morally wrong, or just for some reason those versions can't interact in our world if our versions are there? Like somehow they'd cancel each other out and cause some kind of world-ending explosion or something. I've always wondered the reason why he can't, but he seems very emphatic. Because, being the Doctor, you think if there was a way he could save them, he would want to save them. So I'm always curious the actual explanation of why he can't take them. I wish that had kind of been in there. I love that ending. So many good cliffhangers in Inferno. Oh my Lord. So it has one of the greatest lines in all of Doctor Who for me. Even though it's a bit obscured because there's a big siren blazing in the background, so you kind of miss it. But it should be. I mean, they just had a big accident. Is when the third Doctor is explaining to them that they need to stop drilling. And it's like the cliffhanger, I think, for episode 4, right around in there. When he's like, do you hear that? That's the sound of this planet screaming out its rage. I love that line. It is one of probably my top 10 favorite lines in all of Doctor Who. That's the sound of this planet screaming out its rage. And first off, that's just amazing dialogue. And I absolutely love the guy who wrote Inferno. He also wrote Mind of Evil, which is my favorite Season 8 story. And I wish he had written more Doctor Who. He is so good at it. And the way John delivers that line, like, listen to me, I am trying to save your lives. And the great thing about having Inferno set in this parallel world is it gives us an opportunity for the Doctor to lose and for it to stick. You don't have to have a Russell T. Davies reset button for something like, say, Last of the Time Lords, or kind of Journey's End, or most certainly Empire of Death, where there's no stakes because you know the reset button, click! You don't have that here. Because it's set in this alternate universe, that world died. That world with billions of people, I don't know what the population was at the time, 3, 4, 5 billion people, they died. The Doctor explained what would happen and how the planet would eventually disintegrate, although I do think some Big Finish stories they've showed up in that, but you know, the canon for that's up in the air. I actually wouldn't mind hearing those Big Finish stories. I'm curious now. But we actually see the Doctor lose. He fails to save that Earth, which is just as real as our own. Just as real as the Doctor's universe's Earth. And all of those people he's been working with, even the ones helping him, like the alternate Greg and the alternate Liz and the alternate Douglas Camfield's wife, you know, they died. Horrific deaths. You saw the lava coming in. What a way to go. Probably a quick way to go, but what a way to go. And it's, again, an excellent cliffhanger where you see the lava pouring in. So many good cliffhangers in this story. So many good ones. There's very little to criticize. I mean, you know, the Doctor going through slipping into the other dimension the first time looks a little dated, but it's fine. It was a good effect for the 70s. And I love the Primoids. I haven't even talked about the Primoids. I love the Primoids. The werewolves, love them. Yeah, their teeth look very fake. That's my biggest criticism. Their teeth look so fake. But I love the design. I love the effect of how they change, how they like heat, watching them slowly evolve, and how much like a werewolf, except for instead of a bite, it's just them touching you, you transform. And I love the fact that much like the Silurians, it's not an alien threat. This is stuff that's oozing out of the planet. It is a naturally occurring Earth phenomenon, unless that's been retconned somewhere. I would actually love to see that come back one day. I love how the Doctor even references Krakatoa in relation to that could be what happened to the settlement of Krakatoa. I like that. So much going on. Inferno is basically the equivalent of a juggler juggling so many different balls, and just not missing a beat, never ever dropping anything. It has so many things it's juggling, so many different plot holes with the other universe, the drilling, the werewolves, everything, and it is balancing everything perfectly and never missing a beat. It is one of the greatest Doctor Who stories ever made, and it is one of the greatest television stories ever made. I absolutely adore Inferno. Now, I don't know how much of a restoration work this one will get because we've already had a special edition where they've restored it more. Well, they had the original release, which I've had for some time. Again, probably the second DVD I ever bought. And you could tell, I remember when I was younger and watching Inferno, I was just like, oh, that's what old TV looks like. But, you know, it's not like now where you can watch, like, the original Star Trek, and since it was shot on film, it looks absolutely gorgeous. I've been watching some Star Trek episodes on Blu-ray, and they look gorgeous, because they were all originally shot on film, and edited on film. But, you know, even if I was watching an original series Star Trek episode in 1985 on an old TV, it would have looked nowhere near as good as it does now on Blu-ray. So I was just like, this is old TV I'm watching. It's only as I got older and I learned about missing episodes, recovered episodes, and how they don't look as good as their masters because they've had to be restored in different ways. And the original version of Inferno is much rougher than a lot of course, the original, the masters that survived. The Pertwee seasons like 10 and 11, which are almost completely the original masters. So you can see a noticeable difference. Now, they did a special edition released where they combined several of the restoration techniques, which I believe is the same thing they're doing with the Blu-ray restorations now, like with Colony in Space and stuff like that, where they're taking about 2 or 3 of the restoration techniques and combining those together, which is a really neat idea. And that's basically what they did with Inferno on the special edition DVD, and it does look much better. So I don't know how much more work they can do. I don't know if they're probably just going to go back to that DVD master and tweak it a little. I suspect it'll get a little tweaking, but I think most of the restoration effort's going to be on Ambassadors of Death and Silurians, with just a little bit of work going towards Inferno. I think Inferno's about as good as Inferno's going to get. Although, again, if they can do a little more work and make it look even better, I'm all for it because I love Inferno. So it's a strong season. And it's a dark season. Matter of fact, even for the Pertwee era, Season 7 is unique. There is not another season in Doctor Who, classic or modern, that has quite such an adult feel to it as Season 7. Season 7 could be the one season where you're not quite sure how old a child needs to be before they're allowed to watch it. Now, some other seasons do this well, too, like, of course, the Hinchcliffe era, especially seasons 13 and 14, also have a more adult feel to them. But Season 7, especially with the material it's dealing with, feels like Doctor Who grown up. It really feels more darker, more serious, and with more adult themes, which would get scaled back some the next season, with Season 8 being almost another soft reboot, with it having more of a family-friendly feel to it. Or as another YouTuber I watched put it, Season 7 feels less like a military organization for UNIT and more like a family. Like UNIT feels more like a family, and that was very well. I forget who said it, but it's a very good point. And we saw that basically for the rest of the Pertwee era, which is still a phenomenal era. Pertwee does not have a bad season, let me be clear. His era is arguably the best era the show's ever had. But Season 7 does feel slightly does feel different tonally from Seasons 8, 9, 10, and 11 from his era. And I think that's something that should be pointed out. It just has a more serious, darker feel to it, which I like. With Liz also being a more serious companion than the more bubbly, maybe a little scatterbrained Joe Grant we would have for 3 seasons. It's really, really good. It is really good. I'm going to go ahead and rank them real quick. I would say at the bottom, maybe Ambassadors of Death, even though it's still great. I like it. Maybe an episode too long. Still really good. Love the story. Right above it, just barely inching out, Doctor Who and the Silurians, which again, really good, fantastic ending. Maybe an episode too long. Next up is Spearhead from Space, written by the legendary Bob Holmes. And you guys know, if you watch my channel, I love Bob Holmes. He's the best writer the show has ever had. Classic or modern. Best writer ever. And this is where he really starts his golden age, which I think will last all the way through Caves of Androzani, where he's just writing banger after banger after banger after banger, as long as there's no squids involved. And he really came to this baseball game to play, because he knocks it out of the park here. Straight up a home run. Such a good story. I love everything going on in this one, and the decision to shoot it all on film was a great one, as it looks fantastic. And of course, number 1 on my list, Inferno. I love Inferno. Just every Doctor Who fan needs to watch Inferno. It is so amazing. So Season 7, a new start for Doctor Who in so many ways. First season in color. First season for the 3rd Doctor. First season of the decade. And the first season with a whole new format for the show. I want to know what you think of Season 7 of Doctor Who, which is often heralded as one of the best seasons the show has ever put out. And do you think Modern Who has ever put out a series or season better than Season 7? Comment down below. Let's talk about it. Other things to do. Don't forget to click the like button and the subscribe button. And don't forget to check down in the description as well. I have a link to my Patreon down there if you would like to support me and support what I do. I want to give a shout out to one of my top tier patrons, Colin Coney. I appreciate his support, as I do the support of all of my patrons and all of my YouTube members. It very much is appreciated, and it very much helps me pay the bills and put money in the savings account, which is a huge focus for me right now. I also have a P.O. box. If there's anything you would like to send me to look at and review, would love to get like some Big Finish stuff in. I also would like to get some more of these standard edition sets. These are the only ones I have right now, but I'm really enjoying collecting the standard edition sets. They're pretty awesome. I also have a link to my Amazon wishlist down there, and a link to my Amazon UK wishlist down there as well, with several of those listed on it. most importantly, thank you for watching.